Good morning, everybody. I would like to, on behalf of the entire Coordinating Center, welcome each and every one of you today. If this is your first meeting, fasten your seatbelt. We've got a lot packed in, and we especially want to give you a welcome. I'd like to welcome Emily Santer, who's our part of our Blue Cross Blue Shield sponsorship team, and a special, oh, and Marty Walsh is here, welcome. And a special thank you, of course, to our patient and caregivers who give their time and expertise to teach us, to make us better, and to inspire us. You know, it's only 10:53. Are you swimming with everything that we're doing? All these ideas, interprofessional development, equity work, financial navigation, comes from the feedback we've gotten from you. Yes, we kind of are an idea factory in the Coordinating Center as well, but we don't move forward without MOQC's approval, the steering committee approval, and from energy that we get from you. So we take ideas and turn them into projects and turn them into products. So keep the ideas coming, and thank you for filling out those surveys with us at the regional meetings. I am hoping to make up time as we talk about MOQC performance updates and some VBR updates as well. All the measures chosen are chosen by you. The Coordinating Center does not choose the measures. If you don't like a measure, we want to hear about it. If you have an idea for new measures, we want to hear about it. These are the measures we're going to talk about today, and we will have a chance to have you ask questions and make comments. We'll be using Slido. If you don't want to come up to the mic and speak, you'll be able to type them in, and you can be anonymous if you want to. So this is the list of the measures I'll be showing you today. The VBR measures are those measures for which we reward or incentivize performance through uplifts to practices. We have added a complete family history as a new VBR measure, and we're retiring recording of race and ethnicity and smoking status recorded because the performance was so good. We topped out at over 90%. Just a quick summary about value-based reimbursement. If you're new to this, it's a little complicated. I'll try to break it down. Our measures are measured at the region level. We have the state divided into 6 regions. If you don't know what your region is, let us know. And then we have measures at the practice level and then measures at the collaborative level. And those are listed here. You can have a VBR of 2% all the way up to 7%. Through our certification program, the VBR will be 12%. So if this is the first time you're hearing it, I'm seeing some eyes pop open, and that will be in place of these measures. If you do not achieve certification, this structure here on this slide will still apply. So it's not an all or none. In the fall, we will be inviting you to apply for MOQC certification, and as Dr. Severson mentioned, we are sending out all the materials for a period of open comment next week. 2 other things that need to be met at the practice level. We need at least 1 physician and 1 practice manager or other practice partner, some change agent, to come to both regional meetings and at least 1 of the biannual meetings. Our biannual meetings will be virtual in January, so that will allow more people to come. But we, as you can see, many people come to both. And that's wonderful because that's where we have so much energy and engagement with one another. Thank you all for being here. It does not, we have changed it so that if you cannot attend your regional meeting, you can go to another region's meeting. All the meetings are on the calendar now, so you can mark your calendars, but things come up. Please feel free to go to another region's meeting. Dawn Severson came to a different meeting and really enjoyed it. Got to see some friends you hadn't seen in a while. And so we're trying to make this as inclusive and as feasible as possible for you and your practice members. It also doesn't need to be the same doctor coming to each one. Physicians also need to be enrolled in PGIP for at least a year. If that means nothing to you, it's okay. But when you're a new oncologist, it does take a year to be enrolled in the physician group incentive program. I would like to thank our data abstractors. I'll be showing you data in a minute. Look at all the people who contribute to collecting data. We have 2 slides. That's our second slide. Could we have a round of applause for our abstractors? We would be nothing without you. All right, I'm going to go right into the measures. And just to orient you a little bit, if you see a green up arrow, that means that the performance has significantly improved this year compared to last year. If you see a red arrow going downwards, that means that performance has significantly worsened. There aren't as many red arrows as there are green arrows. If your practice had no eligible data for that round for either year, you are not in this, you won't see your practice number. If you don't know your practice number, the practice numbers will be along the x-axis horizontally. You can ask any one of the MOQC members. Just step out and grab your number. I'm hoping you all know them by now. And I'm going to go right into family history. This family history is a VBR, or value-based reimbursement measure. Our target is 35%. We have significantly improved performance on this measure. We were in the 23% range just last year. So this is a substantial improvement. This is one of the few measures where we can actually save lives. By taking a complete family history, you can identify appropriate treatments and preventive measures, not only for your family, for the patient, but also their family. Look at some of those practices way high up there. Isn't that impressive? And lots of practices have improved. Tobacco cessation counseling, your recommendation from your practice, it doesn't have to be a physician, it can be a medical assistant, and we have a partnership with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to provide free nicotine replacement therapy and motivational interviewing for patients through this grant that we have. Look at our performance. We are so proud of this. We were doing really well before the pandemic. This fell down to 50% for understandable reasons. COVID 2020 has been called the lost year for tobacco cessation, but look where we are. Look at those practices above the target. That's pretty impressive. And as Dawn mentioned, we'll be focusing on this in the fall. So if your practice is struggling, you can learn what the practices that are doing well are doing, and we can all help each other. We are almost there, MOQC-wide. Growth factor administered to people getting chemotherapy with non-curative intent is something we like to avoid. This is a lower is better measure. This is not a VBR measure, but we set a target at 10%. Use went way up during the pandemic, which was actually appropriate. We'd like to see it come back down. Most practices are above this target, but not all. This is a choosing wisely measure. If you have any questions about this measure, you'll have a chance to ask. We'll be focusing on this measure at one of the points during our upcoming meetings. See, I'm catching up on time. Okay, NK1 receptor antagonist prescribed or administered for people who don't need it wastes a lot of money. These drugs are $200 a pill. And if you're getting this and you don't need it, it's basically throwing these drugs away. And you can see our performance is really improving on this measure. If your practice is using more NK1RAs, usually it's not individual physicians, it's a form of clinical inertia, and it's your order sets. Your order sets contain these drugs, and asking your clinicians to uncheck that box is something that takes an amount of effort we'd like to diminish. We focused on this during our regional meetings, and we are here to help you. We have a list of the regimens and drugs that don't need these agents, so we can help with that. This is sort of the opposite measure. In patients getting high emetic risk chemotherapy, we know that olanzapine added to a 4-drug regimen markedly improves not only nausea and vomiting, but the likelihood of being admitted to the hospital. We showed that in a sample of 500 patients, we saved over $300,000 by using olanzapine. Olanzapine costs $4 for 4 cycles of AC chemotherapy. So if you need help, you want information on how to inform your patients, if you would like to join those practices on the right side of the graph, let us help you. Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So Dr. Jerome's side just asked, because he doesn't have a mic, your voice carries, but it's a weird room. Is this cycle 1 only? It is. So if somebody isn't tolerating chemotherapy and you want to add an NK1RA for the second and subsequent cycles, they're not included in this measure. For people who are started on olanzapine and don't tolerate it, You can stop it, they don't need it. And remember, this is not 10 milligrams anymore, it's 2.5 to 5 milligrams. It's all that's needed to improve outcomes, and an outcome that patients and caregivers care a lot about and also don't tell us when they're nauseated. End of life measures. Hospice enrollment. Hospice enrollment, this is 3,000 patients over the last year compared to the previous year, which was a similar number of patients. Our target is 60%. We were, guys, everybody here, we were at 40% a few years ago. We're at 60%, and look at those practices on the right side. How did they do it? They want to tell you. They want to tell you how they did it. This is amazing. We are so excited, and I hope all of you are so proud of the work you've done. And for those of you here from hospice and palliative care, thank you for your partnership. You know, one of the things that wasn't mentioned with the work of MOQC, and when Dawn was up here, is we do this at the state level. So we're the only state I know collecting pros at a state level. We're the only initiative that I know of developing interprofessional resources at the state level. So we can improve. Does that make sense to you? Is it something really exciting? Hospice enrollment, not in one practice or two or a health system, some major conglomerate or private equity firm. This is at the state level. I find that very moving. Hospice enrollment more than, thank you. This is you. This is what you have done with our patient and caregivers telling us, why are you looking at 3 days on hospice? We don't even notice, that's not even on here. That's a National Quality Forum measure that we're like, we got that beat. We're looking at 7 days. Look at this, our target is not a VBR measure, but our target is 60%. We are so close to having patients on hospice for more than 7 days. 3 days? Seriously? All right, next one is 30 days. Our patient and caregivers asked us, our palliative care and end-of-life task force, which you'll be hearing about from in a little bit, we said, actually it was Mike Harrison who said, if 7 days is good, if hospice is so great, why is 7 days enough? He said, you can be proud you've ditched the 3-day measure, but I'm not that proud of 7 days. So we're going to be expanding this over and over again. Look at this. We are on target to hit our target of 30%. But why not longer? You can be on hospice for more than 6 months. Why is 7 days enough? So we continue to push our measures, and you're right along there with us. So the COPE measure that does have a VBR attached to it is fewer than 7 days. We actually, Jerome's side is always pushing us, let's do longer. It's not the least, right? We don't want a scarcity mindset, we want an abundance mindset. And so we have met the target for this across the collaborative. So lower is better, and look at where we are. We are so excited about this. Chemotherapy in the last 2 weeks of life is a lower is better measure, and we have done really well. Year over year, the proportion of patients getting chemo at the end of life is going down. For all of you, look at this. If your practice is on the right side of the chart, we want to help you. We can help you get there to get lower use of chemotherapy at the end of life. I would love you to go onto Slido, take a snap of this. You can submit questions, you can say who you are, or you can submit them anonymously. I'm hoping our patients and caregivers will please put in questions, or even better, go to the mic. We have folks on the mics ready to come to you. Please wait till the microphone gets to you so everybody can hear you. I want to hear complaints. I want to hear accolades. I want to hear what can we do better. I want to hear, I have no idea what you're talking about. Please explain. Who would like to kick us off? Thank you. I can always count on Dr. Jerome's side. And then I'm turning it over to Dr. Gribby.
I think what you're presenting is great. I have a confession. My practice is not in any of those for reasons that are beyond my understanding, and I find that embarrassing, and I'm willing to state that publicly. That needs to change.
It stopped working.
But I think it's important to recognize, really to to underscore what you've said. The efforts that are being made are really important, and because this is a statewide process, and the changes that we can make are really changes that need to occur locally and statewide. We should not be waiting for COPE and ASCO and the federal side to sort of push us to do something. So I think that this really does demonstrate what we can do within our own reach, and I think that's important. One, I guess, question that I would have for you as perhaps an initiative that we can think about is there an idea that maybe we can look at the incorporation of palliative care early into a patient's treatment for, pick a cancer. So when you look at NCCN guidelines as an example, there's in the initial workup, early inclusion of palliative care specialists, whatever that may be, whatever the resource you may have. And we had Jennifer Temmel here last year, I think, or the year before, and in fact, she's one of the references for that on the palliative care guidelines. But if you look at non-small cell lung cancer, early on, so instead of just looking at end of life and hospice, which is its own unique, uncomfortable aspect sometimes, is it worth looking at early initiation or early inclusion of palliative care into a patient's treatment plan, referrals, whatever that may be?
Thank you for both of your comments and the question. Our theme today is palliative care. We have lots of palliative care folks here today with us. And in fact, one of the certification measures for the first rollout will be palliative care consultation more than 60 days before death. And that measure was actually voted against because several people, I mean, it's in there, it was a majority approved, but we also will be adding the following year palliative care consultation for people early, much earlier, with people with advanced disease and people with symptoms, severe toxicity. So your question is timely. We do need to make accommodations for entire parts of the state that have no access to palliative care. I'm so pleased that Dr. Walsh and Emily Santer are here because they're going to get to see, with work that Andrew Russell will be presenting, the availability of palliative care services across the state of Michigan. The entire Upper Peninsula is excluded. So if you are here from a UP practice, your practice will not have to meet the palliative care measure to be certified. I have dyspepsia over that because it means your patients are not getting what all the other patients have access to. So we need to, as a group, demand change, right? We don't just say, well, that's just the way it is. We say, how are we going to change this? So from your lips to Blue Cross's ears, and I would love to see somebody else at the mic. Thank you. Okay, mic is coming from Robin. Thank you. And could the next person please raise their hand so the mic can get to you in time?
I'm a member of MOQC, Joan Gargaro. I have a question. I'm new to this, not new to cancer, 10-year survivor, but I'm questioning whether, because I've been a patient navigator many, many times for family members and friends, whether there's a disconnect with palliative care, the sale of it to a family member, a caregiver, whether they're willing to accept it as soon as the measures are looking at.
Such a great question. What is the acceptability of palliative care? We'll be hearing from Dr. Tom LeBlanc, our keynote speaker, about the definition of palliative care. And that does appear to be one of the major barriers to expanding palliative care is the issue of demand. So it's incumbent upon us to be working on informing patients. I once gave a talk for people with advanced breast cancer, and I was followed by Dr. Tim Quill, who's an expert in palliative care. And by the end of the meeting, every single person was saying, why haven't I been referred to palliative care? There were 200 patients asking, why haven't I been referred to palliative care? All they needed was to have it explained to them. On our website are resources that explain what palliative care is, and we will create these in any language you want. That is our commitment to you, and your patients and caregivers. So thank you for that really important question. It's an issue of marketing, right? Like most things. We market MOQC to you, we have to market palliative care to patients and caregivers. What else? More questions. I'm going to start calling on people. Oh, good. Mike Harrison, a mic to Mike, please. Run. We got to make up time. Oh, we have Slido questions. Oh, that makes me very happy. Oh, we need you on mic. Yeah.
I said, I know there's no such thing as a stupid question, but I'm going to fix that right now. But I don't understand the difference where the connection between palliative care and hospice care comes together. Does palliative care refer to hospice? Does hospice refer to palliative? What is the connection between the two? How well do they work together?
Brilliant question that Dr. Tom LeBlanc will be answering during our keynote. Thank you, Mike. I could answer it, I'm just saying. But I do want to say there, while the mic's being passed around, that I have a contest for the stupidest question, and the winner gets to go to Paris. And I have not yet sent anybody to Paris. So this is your chance. I am not joking. My husband and I have saved money for this in our savings account. So this is your chance for a trip to Paris. Please ask a question. All right, let's go to Slido then while you all are thinking of your questions.
Perfect. So the first Slido question, can you remind us of the interval for collection of these data?
Yes, thank you very much. Our abstractors can answer that more precisely, but this is the round that ended in at the end of December, and then the year before that. So it's 2 rounds of data. We don't yet have the data from this spring. And then it's compared to the previous 12 months. At our biannual meetings, we do year over year. So that's why it looks a little different from the regional meetings, where we do the most recent round compared to the round or year before that. Thank you. That's a super question.
Great. And so the next question, can you clarify what is included in the family history measure? Does it have to be captured at the first visit? Time frame for capturing this information?
Great question. Family history includes first and second degree family members and the age of anybody diagnosed. We don't do a three generation family history for that measure that we include. If the patient doesn't know, you still meet the measure. You just have to say you asked. So lots of people don't know the age. If they say the unknown, I don't know when my uncle had thyroid cancer, I would just say unknown, but you asked. I used to, before I became MOQC person, that I used to, in my breast cancer patients, say no family history of breast or ovarian cancer. That's not sufficient because we know there are other syndromes associated with breast cancer. Plus, people are still at risk of Lynch syndrome. They can have come in with breast cancer, but they're a Lynch syndrome family. Joanne Hirth, who's on our advisory board and part of our MITE study, she has a family health history tool in her practice, identified a patient with lung cancer who was a Lynch family. And the age matters because that goes into the PREM score that we calculate for patients. Any questions you have about this, we have a project helping you collect a family history. We can also create forms for you to use. If your forms don't ask about age, let us know. We'll send you somebody who does. That's what we do working across the state.
Yeah, and we also have a follow-up question to that. So why isn't family history a mandatory requirement for all cancer patients when this so impacts their care?
It is mandatory. It is standard of care. And if you're cared for in a practice where the performance is low, and if you work in a practice where your performance is low, I am going to proselytize about this till I am dead.
And then we have one more question on Slido, and this is actually from one of our POQC members that could not make it today from our overview in the previous week. Does this, for the hospice enrollment within 7 days, does this relate to the doctor recommending hospice or the patient must be actively enrolled?
That is a terrific question. We used to collect hospice discussion, and in fact, our performance went from 20% to 80%. doctors started, and teams, doesn't have to be the physician, teams started talking about hospice. Our resources make those discussions easier, and also by making it more salient, people started having these conversations. We are trying to get away, for the most part, from documentation measures and from discussion-only measures. So it's actual enrollment on hospice that counts. All right, we are running out of time, but I would love to take another question. And of course, anybody here is available on email or during the break. Oh, we have another question? Oh, okay. Oh, Natalia is showing you the microphone.
We also have one more Slido question,
Oh, great.
too.
Oh, that's perfect.
So Slido question. So for the GCSF measure, this is for cycle 1 of non-curative intent, correct? Does it take into account control or maintenance intent?
So the GCSF is for cycle 1 of the first regimen used for non-curative intent. So we're not talking about 7th line therapy with eribulin for breast cancer. It's the first cycle, it's actually the first regimen. So great question. The questions about the measures make me want to remind you that all this is explained in one-page handouts on our website. So any questions you have about measures, how to meet them, examples of documentation, we have very short videos and handouts. Download all of those, share them with everybody in your practice. All right, I want to thank all of you for all the work you do to improve care across the state. I find this moving, and thank you for your questions this morning. Please keep them coming. Thank you so much.